She stood there in the doorway, like a ghost from a life long buried, her silhouette framed by the golden hues of the setting sun, filtering through the mansion's grand windows. Elegantly poised in a simple navy dress that whispered of quiet strength, she clutched a small, unassuming box against her chest, as if it were the last thread connecting her to a world she'd walked away from nearly 2 decades ago. No fanfare, no warning call, just her, Juanita Vanoy, Michael Jordan's ex-wife, stepping into the heart of a celebration no one had scripted for this kind of twist. The jazz quartet's smooth saxophone notes hung in the air for a beat too long before trailing off, and the room, once alive with the clink of crystal glasses and bursts of laughter, plunged into a hush so profound it felt like the whole world had hit pause. What could possibly bring her back now? After all the headlines, the settlements, the years of polite distance. And what secret did that box hold that would unravel everything they thought they knew about family, forgiveness, and the ties that refused to snap? It was Dolores Jordan's birthday, a milestone marked not with extravagance, but with the kind of intimate elegance that only a son like Michael could orchestrate. Born in a modest corner of Wilmington, North Carolina, Dolores had raised 5 children on grit and grace, turning scraped-together meals into lessons in resilience and bedtime stories into blueprints for dreams. Michael, the third of those kids, had risen from those same streets to become the NBA's unassailable icon. 6 championships, a cultural colossus. But to her, he was still the boy who'd sneak extra slices of pound cake, the one whose fire she'd fanned into legend. Now, with his current wife, Yvette Prieto, by his side, he'd transformed their sprawling estate into a living tribute to her. White lilies blooming in every alcove, a garden table groaning under silver, platters of crab cakes and cornbread dressing, her favorites. From back home, a memory wall plastered, with faded Polaroids from Wilmington's humid summers. To the Bulls' glory days in Chicago, Michael moved through, the space like a conductor, his sharp eyes catching every detail. He carried the weight of his legacy with the same intensity that once fueled alley-oops and game winners. But tonight was about release, about honoring the woman who'd whispered, "You can do anything," even when the world said otherwise. "The place cards, did we get the one for Aunt Betty right up front?" he murmured to Yvette, adjusting a gold-embossed tag with calloused fingers that had gripped 1,000 basketballs. Yvette, ever the picture of poised warmth in her cream silk blouse, nodded with that gentle smile that had steadied him through retirements and rebounds alike. Married in a lavish Palm Beach ceremony that blended their worlds seamlessly, Yvette had slipped into the Jordan fold with the quiet ferocity of someone who understood that love wasn't about spotlight. It was about showing up, day after unflashy day. But even the most meticulously planned evenings have a way of veering off script, and Michaels hadn't seen this curveball coming. 2 days prior, buried in his inbox amid endorsement deals and Hornets updates, sat an email so sparse it almost felt like a glitch. From Juanita Vanoy, subject, "For Dolores." The words were measured, almost fragile. "I heard about your mother's celebration. I'd like to bring something in person. This isn't about reopening old chapters, it's hers. If it's too much, just say the word." Michael had stared at the screen in his Highland Park study, the glow casting shadows on the framed jersey from his '97 Finals MVP. Juanita, the woman he'd met at a Bennigan's in Chapel Hill, the one who'd given him 3 children and years of a marriage that buckled under the strain of fame, infidelity rumors, and a settlement that made waves. They'd co-parented with the armored civility of exes who shared DNA deeper than disdain, attending graduations and games without the sting ever fully fading. But this? He hadn't hit reply, hadn't known how. And yet, here she was, crossing the dew-kissed lawn with steps that echoed like hesitant heartbeats. Dolores spotted her first, from her seat at the head of the table, where a crown of fresh magnolias rested like a halo. Time had softened the edges of her once fierce frame, but those eyes, sharp as the day she'd scrimped to buy Michael his first real sneakers, lit up with a recognition that bridged every silent year. She rose without a word, her chair scraping softly against the stone patio, and pulled Juanita into an embrace that swallowed the room's tension whole. "Child," she murmured, her voice thick with the Carolinas, "you came home." Juanita's arms trembled as she returned the hug, the box pressing between them like a shared heartbeat. "I couldn't not," she whispered back, her own eyes glistening under the string lights. Tears? Laughter? Maybe both. Michael watched from the sidelines, arms crossed over his crisp white shirt, his jaw set in that familiar line of guarded wonder. Yvette, beside him, laid a hand on his elbow, light, reassuring, but her gaze flickered with the unspoken. This reunion wasn't just a footnote. It was a chapter begging to be rewritten. As the evening unfolded, the air thickened with the kind of electricity that follows a storm's first rumble. Dinner commenced under a canopy of stars, the jazz resuming in tentative swells. Michael's children, Jeffrey, the eldest, a steady presence in the family wine business. Marcus, the podcaster with a flair for the dramatic. And Jasmine, the sharp-minded executive at Nike's Jordan brand, each took the mic in turn. Jeffrey toasted with the story of Dolores teaching him to tie a tie before his first job interview, his voice cracking just enough to remind everyone he was still her boy. Marcus rolled a playful video montage of family bloopers, Michael fumbling a backyard grill, Dolores out-dancing everyone at a wedding. Jasmine, poised and purposeful, read a poem she'd penned about roots that twist underground long after the tree falls, words that landed like wildflowers in cracked soil. Then Dolores claimed the floor, her napkin folded neatly in her lap as she stood. The room leaned in, the clatter of silverware fading to a reverent murmur. "Turning this age isn't about candles or cake for me," she began, her tone steady as the hymns she'd sung in church pews. "It's about the threads that hold us, the ones we choose, the ones that choose us. And tonight, looking around this table, I see every one." Her hand found Juanita's, right there in plain view, and a ripple passed through the guests like wind over wheat. "You, my dear," she continued, squeezing those fingers that had once rocked her grandchildren to sleep, "weren't just my son's wife. You were the laughter in my kitchen on Sundays, the voice on the phone when the nights got long. You carried my grandbabies through fevers and first steps, and even when paths diverged, you never stopped being woven in." Juanita's breath hitched, a single tear tracing the fine lines of her cheek. Michael dropped his gaze to his plate, the weight of unspoken apologies pressing like an old injury. But what none of them could foresee, what would soon crack open the evening like dawn through fog, was the power simmering in that little box, a catalyst no one, not even Juanita, had fully grasped. The meal wound down amid soft conversations and refills of sweet tea spiked with bourbon. But the real unraveling came after, as desserts were cleared and the group migrated to the fireside lounge. Juanita rose, the box still cradled in her palms like a fragile heirloom. "Dolores," she said, her voice gaining strength from the woman's unwavering gaze. "I've held on to this longer than I held on to resentment. It sat in my attic in Chicago, gathering dust beside photo albums I couldn't bear to open. But lately, well, time has a way of whispering truths we ignore. This isn't about reclaiming anything. It's about returning what's always been yours." With deliberate care, she lifted the lid, revealing a treasure trove that pulled gasps from the circle. Yellowed letters exchanged during the lean years of Michael's rookie season, when Juanita was navigating motherhood alone while he traveled. Grainy cassette tapes labeled in Dolores's looping script, Jasmine's first laugh. Marcus's crayon scribbles of a family picnic that never quite happened the way they dreamed. Jeffrey's baby teeth in a tiny velvet pouch, each milestone annotated in faded ink. And threaded through it all, a leather-bound journal where Dolores had chronicled the chaos and joy. Today, little Jeff rode his trike without training wheels. Reminds me of Michael at 4, all knees and determination. Dolores's hand flew to her lips, her eyes tracing the pages as if touching echoes of her own youth. You kept this? All of it? Juanita nodded, her throat tight. Because endings don't erase beginnings, Dolores. You were my compass when I felt adrift. The calls at 2 a.m. about teething, the care packages for birthdays. Even after the papers were signed, you texted on Mother's Day. Quietly, like family does. The room hung on those words, the fire crackling as the only sound daring to interrupt. Michael, from his spot by the mantel, felt the pull like gravity. Memories flooding back of custody battles in sterile courtrooms, tabloid shadows that painted them as villains in their own love story. The way he'd shielded the kids from the fallout only to leave scars anyway. But the box wasn't done whispering. Tucked at the very bottom, beneath a stack of pressed wildflowers from a long-ago Wilmington vacation, lay something pristine, untouched by time. A sealed envelope, crisp as fresh newsprint, scented faintly with lavender. Dolores lifted it, brow furrowing. This? I've never laid eyes on it. Juanita leaned in, equally puzzled. Not mine. Honest. The front bore bold looping script. For Grandma Dolores, with love that outlasts. Michael's pulse quickened. Wait, is that Jasmine's hand? Dolores slit the seal with a butter knife, unfolding a single sheet of thick stationery alongside a sheaf of legal papers, notarized and official. Her lips moved silently at first, then aloud in fragments. Dear Grandma, I've spent years chasing forgiveness, not just for Dad and Mom, but for the girl I was in the middle of it all. You taught me that love isn't a scorecard. It's showing up, even when it hurts. She trailed off, eyes brimming as she scanned the deed. And this, oh Lord, Jasmine's bought the old lot on Elm Street, right where we used to live. She's turning it into a headquarters for single mothers, counseling, job training, childcare, inspired by you, Dolores, and the way you held us through the storms. And by Mom, too, Juanita's quiet fight after everything fell apart. The revelation landed like a slam dunk in overtime. Jasmine, Michael's trailblazing daughter, who'd climbed the ranks at Jordan Brand championing women's athletics and equity initiatives, had been quietly amassing this dream for months. But this was personal alchemy, transmuting family fractures into a beacon. She named it Dolores's house, Dolores finished, voice breaking on the words. A place where no woman starts over alone. Headquarters for workshops on financial literacy, mental health support, tied right into the family clinics we've been building. Michael sank into a chair, stunned. He'd known whispers of her passion projects, but not this scope. Not the deed filed just weeks ago. Not the partnerships with Novant Health that echoed his own push for free clinics in Charlotte and Wilmington earlier that year. Juanita, hand over mouth, shook her head in awe. She didn't breathe a word. Thought I was too far removed, I guess. Dolores clasped her hand tighter. Honey, distance is just geography. You're the root system. Unseen, but holding it all up. As the night deepened, the mansion's gardens became a confessional under the stars. Michael wandered the paths alone at first, the photo mural pulling him like a magnet, shots of him hoisting the '91 trophy, Dolores beaming from the stands, a candid of Juanita cradling newborn Jasmine in a hospital glow. The family at Disney, Marcus mid-tantrum over Mickey ears, each frame a reminder of victories won and wars lost. The divorce that splashed across headlines, the therapy sessions Jeffrey had dragged him to, the way fame had turned intimacy into a spectator sport. Footsteps crunched behind him. Juanita, tentative as a deer in headlights. Michael, I didn't plan the ambush. Just felt like Dolores deserved a bridge, not a wall. He turned, the air between them thick with unsaid mileage. A photo caught his eye. The three of them with baby Jasmine, his arm around Juanita like it belonged there. You always did have impeccable timing, he said, half-smile tugging despite himself. But why now, after the silence? She exhaled, leaning against the stone wall. Because I'm tired of letting pain write the ending. We've got grandkids on the horizon. Jasmine's talking about starting a family. Marcus with his podcast empire. And you've built clinics, poured millions into equity for Black communities. Like that fourth one in Wilmington this February. It made me think, what if we all borrowed a page from that? Healing out loud. Her words hung there, laced with the truth of their shared history. The blind date, the secret wedding to dodge the press, the birth of Jeffrey amid Michael's rising stardom. Michael's parents had been wary at first, whispers of gold digger floating like smoke. But Dolores had seen the steel in Juanita early, the way she'd juggle modeling gigs and midnight feedings without complaint. The price we paid, he murmured, echoing her earlier line, the headlines calling it a cash grab, the kids shuttling between coasts. It carved us hollow. Juanita met his eyes, unflinching. And yet, here we stand. Not whole, but willing. For them. From the window above, Yvette watched, a dish towel twisted in her hands. Not from jealousy, but from the ache of piecing into a mosaic already half set. Cuban roots and a modeling past had taught her poise. But marriage to Michael had been a masterclass in patience, navigating the ex's shadow, earning Dolores's nod during quiet teas where they'd bond over recipes and resilience. You're family now, Dolores had said once, over café con leche. Shadows don't eclipse, they just add depth. Now, as Michael and Juanita talked, Yvette felt that depth stir, not as threat, but as invitation. She descended the stairs, finding Dolores in the kitchen, folding linens with methodical calm. Mind if I join the puzzle? Yvette asked, voice light. Dolores chuckled, low and warm. Sugar. This family's a quilt. Patched, frayed, but warmer for it. Your stitches hold the new patterns. Yvette's shoulders eased. Just figuring my colors in the mix. Dolores pulled her into a side hug. Bright as they come. And tonight, it's the wind turning the pages. The evening stretched, jazz giving way to crickets and candle flicker. Jasmine's note, slipped under Michael's door later, sealed the night's magic. Dad, I hid this with Grandma because some gifts need her wisdom to land right. The divorce left us all with ghosts, but I've learned from watching you fight back. On courts, in boardrooms. This house? It's my shot at the buzzer. Love builds bridges, even shaky ones. Cross when you're ready. Michael texted back from the edge of his bed. Proud doesn't cover it, kid. You're the real goat. Out on the porch, the women converged. Dolores, Juanita, Yvette. Steaming mugs of chamomile bridging the gaps. Laughter bubbled over tales. Michael's feverish flu game, when Juanita smuggled soup into the arena. The Christmas Marcus torched the turkey trying to deep fry it, like he'd seen on TV. We needed that quiet to hear this, Juanita mused, clinking her cup. Yvette added, and now, the harmony's just starting. Dolores beamed. 2 choruses yet to sing. Dawn broke soft over the estate. But Juanita lingered only for coffee and one final handover. Another box, this one brimming with her own letters to Dolores. Pep talks from the divorce haze. Faith-laced notes on raising daughters in a man's world. You never let go, Dolores said, clutching them like lifelines. Juanita's goodbye hug lingered. Neither did you. As her car vanished down the drive, the air felt lighter, charged with possibility. What if this wasn't closure but a comma? 3 weeks slipped by like pages in a well-loved book, each day layering new chapters on the foundation Juanita's visit had cracked open. Michael found himself in Wilmington more, the salt-kissed air a balm to the restlessness that had dogged him since retirement. The old neighborhood hummed with ghosts. The corner store where Dolores had bartered for bulk rice, the court where he'd sunk his first free throws under her watchful eye. Jasmine met him there one crisp morning, notebook in hand, surveying the Elm Street lot. A weedy patch primed for transformation. "Smaller than memory," she said, kicking a pebble. Michael grinned. "Or maybe we've just grown too used to arenas." Jasmine was a force. Her role at Jordan Brand had her spearheading women's empowerment pushes, like the scholarships for female hoopers in underserved communities, echoing Michael's pledge to racial justice and education. But this project pulsed personal. Classes on resume building drawn from her own climb, therapy circles inspired by the family counseling that had mended their post-divorce rifts. "You mapped all this solo?" Michael asked, flipping through her sketches. Blueprints for communal kitchens, playrooms with swings that evoked childhood freedoms. Jasmine shrugged. Mom chipped in ideas over late-night calls. Grandma shared stories of scraping by with 5 kids. "And you, your clinic model? That's the backbone. Free health checkups on-site, tied to Novant's network." He nodded, pride swelling. The 4th Michael Jordan Family Medical Clinic had ribbon cut in February, a gift providing care to thousands in Charlotte's underinsured pockets, many single moms juggling jobs and Jell-O molds. "I'm in," he said. "Funding, branding, whatever it takes. But this time, I listen first." Jasmine's eyes sparkled. "Deal. 3 generations of Jordan women leading. Unstoppable." Back in Charlotte, Dolores savored the porch swing, one of Juanita's letters open on her lap. "I stumbled into your world green as spring grass, but you showed me how to root deep." Yvette bustled out with a tray. Fresh scones, her secret weapon for thawing silences. "That one's a keeper," she noted, settling beside her. Dolores traced the ink. "Took decades to bloom, but see? Still fragrant." Yvette, who'd bonded with Dolores over shared recipes during Michael's absences, Yvette's arroz con pollo melding with Dolores's collards, felt the quilt widen. "You're the thread, you know, holding patterns we didn't choose." Dolores patted her knee. "And you're the bold hue, Cuban fire in Carolina soil." In Chicago, Juanita's high-rise felt less echoey. Walls once bare now bore frames. Jasmine's graduation grin with Dolores. A faded snap of the kids at a Bulls game. Michael's arm slung casual around her shoulders. An email pinged Jasmine's invite to the groundbreaking. "Mom, this isn't just mine. Your strength, it's the mortar." Juanita's reply flew back. "Wouldn't miss laying the first brick." Heart pounding, she booked the flight. What bridges would this build next? Preparations ramped like a championship build-up. Michael assembled a lean team. Architects versed in his clinic builds, community liaisons from the Jordan Institute for Families, which he'd co-founded to nurture at-risk kids. Jasmine orchestrated outreach. Town halls in Wilmington's barbershops and beauty parlors. Flyers promising, "No judgment, just jumpstarts." "This ain't charity," she told a packed room at the local rec center. "It's reclamation." Grandma raised legends on less. Mom rebuilt solo after the storm. "Every woman here deserves that shot." Nods rippled. One mom, braids swinging, shared her eviction saga, voice steady for the first time in months. Days before the launch, Dolores fielded Jasmine's call. "Grandma, pen something real for the mic?" Her laugh crackled. Not as the matriarch, as the girl who hauled laundry with babies on hips, prayed over empty fridges, the one who knows fear's just fog before first light. The eve hummed with family. Jeffrey grilling ribs, Marcus spinning playlists, all under one roof for the first time since, well, longer than anyone cared to count. Juanita arrived at dusk, a wrapped parcel in tow, vintage Bulls tees, monogrammed for the house's welcome kits. Michael swung the door wide. "Glad you made it." She stepped in, scent of jasmine perfume mingling with the hickory smoke. "Wouldn't trade it." The air crackled, not with old sparks, but fresh kindling. Launch day dawned benevolent, a September sun gilding Wilmington's live oaks. Dolores's house stood proud, butter-yellow walls, wrap-around porch evoking Dolores's childhood home, a garden labyrinth for quiet reflection. The sign gleamed, "Dolores's house. Every woman deserves a doorway home." By 9 a.m., the lot buzzed, moms with tots in tow, elders with canes tapping resolve. A brass band from the community center warming up. Michael escorted Dolores, her azure dress flowing like a banner. "Ready to claim your legacy?" he teased. She winked. "Born with it, son. Just time to share." Juanita worked the fringes, stacking brochures on resilience workshops, drawing from her own post-divorce reinvention, channeling modeling poise into real estate ventures that funded scholarships for single-parent grads. Yvette claimed a front-row seat, her presence a silent anchor. Jasmine mounted the low stage, mic in hand, the crowd a sea of hopeful faces. "I didn't dream bricks and mortar," she started, voice carrying like her dad's post-game speeches. "I dreamed embraces like Grandma's, firm, flour-dusted from Sunday biscuits. I dreamed the steel in Mom's spine when she waved goodbye to a life scripted by spotlights. And I dreamed of you, all of you, who rise before dawn, braid hair with one hand while stirring pots with the other. Whisper, 'We got this,' to mirrors cracked by doubt." Pauses, let it sink. Sniffles echoed. "This house? It's those dreams made manifest. Roots in Wilmington soil, branches reaching for whatever sky you chase." Applause thundered as Dolores took the stage, paper crinkling in her grip. "When Michael came howling into this world, I was young, scared, spitless, with dreams bigger than my bank account. Raised 5 on faith and favors, nights mending socks by flashlight, days dodging bill collectors with a smile. Never fancied my name on a plaque. Just prayed my ordinary held extraordinary for somebody." She scanned the faces. Jasmine saw it. "Turned survival into sanctuary. Here, you'll find more than walls. Counselors who've walked your weary miles. Tutors turning 'I can't' to 'watch me.' Health checks like the clinics Michael built. Free, fierce, for folks the system forgot. And sisterhood? That's the real mortar." Her voice peaked. "You're not invisible. You're the architects. Build bold." The crowd surged to feet, cheers mingling with sobs. A young mom clutching her toddler, whispering, "We made it." Post-speech, Michael cornered Juanita amid the welcome kits. Diaper bags stocked with essentials, courtesy of Yvette's discreet donor hunts. "Thanks for showing," he said, genuine as gravel. She handed a kit to a weary-eyed newcomer. "Never really left, Michael. Just orbiting," he chuckled. "Guess I needed glasses to see that." Inside, the photo triptych commanded the lobby. Dolores cradling infant Michael under a Carolina moon. Juanita radiant at a family picnic, kids tumbling like puppies. Jasmine, arms akimbo on the cleared lot, chin lifted like a conqueror. Captions whispered, "From humble holds to unbreakable homes." As dusk painted the sky lavender, Yvette found Juanita by the garden gate. "Dinner tonight?" "Dolores has got gumbo simmering," insists. Juanita paused, searching her face. "You mean it?" Yvette's nod was pure. "We're all threads now. No leftovers." Over candle-lit bowls that night, stories flowed freer. Juanita's recent trip to Ghana, tracing ancestral roots with Marcus in tow. A jaunt that bonded them over jollof rice and family lore. Laughter bridged the years, a new rhythm emerging. Weeks blurred into a heartbeat for Dolores's house. It burgeoned beyond blueprint. Fridays brought Dolores, scarf knotted jaunty, swapping recipes with residents over checkers. One afternoon, she found Raina, mid-20s, eyes hollow from a fresh split, staring at the swing set Jasmine had insisted on. "Sways like secrets, don't it?" Dolores settled beside her. Raina shrugged. "Never swung much. Life didn't allow play." Dolores pushed off gently. "Plenty of air left in these bones, and yours. Swing with me. Tomorrow's for the serious stuff." Raina's laugh cracked open, tentative as first light. Juanita dove deeper, helming writing circles, pens scratching letters to lost selves, inspired by her own journals from the divorce's dark. "I lost a title, but found my spine." One evening, a participant gripped her post-session. "Your words. They unlocked my cage. Thank you for not burying your thorns." Hugs lingered like old friends. Michael's visits turned ritual, hauling Marcus and Jeffrey for paint jobs, rollers dripping as banter flew. "Still can't believe you torched that turkey," Jeffrey ribbed his brother. Marcus fired back. "Says the guy who cried at his first wine tasting." Michael paused mid-stroke, watching them, men now, but echoes of the boys he'd coached through Little League heartbreaks. Jeffrey caught his eye. "Used to think you'd flown too high to land, Dad." "Post-divorce, it felt like we were spectators in your highlight reel." Michael set the brush down, paint-flecked hands open. "Flew too fast, yeah, but ground game's where the real wins hide." "This us here? That's my MVP season." Jeffrey clapped his shoulder. "Overtime, then?" Jasmine's birthday sealed the season's joy. A low-key affair at the house, balloons bobbing like dreams. The mural tradition returned, women scrawling one-word talismans: resilience, renewal. Juanita etched redemption. Yvette, harmony. Dolores, endure. Michael, chalk hovering, wrote listen, the word that had eluded him longest. Jasmine's reading wove it all, a prose poem on scars as maps, not chains. "Grandma, I thought your power was the roar," she said, voice velvet. "But it's the hush after, the space where grace grows." Tears traced Dolores's cheeks. Juanita clasped her hand across the table. Yvette, from her corner, let relief wash, pieces slotting, no sharp edges left. Twilight found Dolores and Michael in the garden, swing creaking under their weight. "What swirls in that head of yours?" he asked. She gazed at the mural's glow. "Gratitude, son, for the dirt we tilled, the nights I paced with you, colicky, the calls from Juanita when the world weighed heavy. Thought my aches were wasted ink? Turns out they scripted this." He squeezed her hand. "You're the vine. We're just the leaves." Her smile crinkled wise. "And you've learned to tend, finally." A stormy Monday ushered in Amelia, suitcase scarred from hasty packing, 7-year-old Lila clutching a stuffed giraffe like a shield. Eyes downcast, she clutched a flyer. "Safe starts here." Coordinator Elise, a house alum who'd clawed from welfare to wellness coordinator, met her with coffee and calm. "You crossed the threshold. That's the win. Words later. Rest now." Amelia's nod was numb, but the dorm's quilted bed whispered, "Welcome." Jasmine's mentorships evolved, survivors sharing war stories, Juanita unspooling hers raw. Divorce stripped me bare. Lost the missus, the mansion, the myth. Rebuilt with real estate flips and therapy Tuesdays. But the real work? Forgiving the mirror. The circle absorbed it. A woman in braids murmuring, "Lived hushed for years. You just handed me a megaphone." Juanita's embrace said what words couldn't. "We're all echoes, Finding volume together. Dolores's notebook filled, black leather, pages crooked with memory. Feared the empty nest would echo my loneliness, but Michael's flights home filled it with flight plans anew. Jasmine discovered the gem. Fame fed him, but family starved without tending. Yvette, ever the unseen engine, streamlined donations from Jordan Brand's Women's Fund, her calls to Cuban networks netting bilingual tutors. "You're the quiet revolution," Jasmine told her one dusk. Yvette flushed. "Just glue, but thank you. Feels good to stick." Michael's unannounced drop stunned. Crates of relics. 86 rookie card signed, "To Mom, my first fan." Sneakers from the flu game, scuffed but sacred. A letter, yellowed. "Mom, chased rings to prove your sacrifices weren't in vain. But the real gold? Your voice in my ear. Play like it matters. This house honors that. Love, your shooter." Jasmine read it aloud to the common room, voices overlapping in amens. Dolores wept unashamed. Juanita's eyes shone pride. Then, lightning. Lila darted to Dolores mid-gathering, thrusting a crayon masterpiece. A house heart-roofed, 4 women linked hand in hand. "Grandma's house," she printed, gap-toothed grin wide. "Smells like hugs here." Laughter cascaded, tears salting the joy. In that child-simple truth, fractures fused. Autumn draped the house in amber, leaves carpeting paths like confetti from unseen parades. Gatherings needed no excuse now. Impromptu suppers, Jeffrey's wine tastings blending California cabs with Carolina sweet. Michael, once a jet-set blur, lingered, kneading dough with Dolores, her hands guiding his through biscuit folds. NBA streams forgotten for porch debates on equity, his arc bending toward maternal health pods at the clinics. Jasmine's bold stroke. A legacy room. Vault for marks left behind. Consensus crackled. Juanita envisioned, each tale a lantern, lighting the next path. Yvette chimed. "Name it the Maker's Wing, for the hands that shaped without a claim." Inauguration night, Dolores snipped the ribbon. Rocker chair central with its plaque. "Here rested the Keeper of Flames." Walls bloomed portraits. Michael's nap in her lap. Bible open. Juanita's picnic poise. Jasmine's determined stare. Caption, "Before greatness, grace." Amelia closed the night, voice honed. Walked in a whisper, walked out a roar. This house didn't just house me. It voiced me. To Dolores, Juanita, Yvette, Jasmine, you're the choir saying, "Sister, you're seen." Applause lingered. A tide of triumph. Post-revelry. The family tidied. Chairs stacked. Lights dimmed. Michael froze at the mural. Amid courage, dawn, a fresh scrawl. Faith, pink-inked. Dolores's mark. He traced it, chest blooming. On the porch, Dolores lingered in chill, eyes shut against memories. Bathroom sobs over losses long buried, rice rations stretched thin, unsent pleas to a prodigal son. Juanita's steel through splits, Yvette's wise yield, Jasmine's forge from fire. "Thank you," she breathed skyward, "for etching me visible, even in eclipse." Months mounted, branches sprouted, rally outpost by spring, Orlando whispers. Queries on origins drew the same refrain. A box at a birthday, a mother's unyielding, a family's choice to remember. If this tale stirred your soul, pass it on to the one nursing old wounds, chasing new dawns. What word would you etch on the mural? Speak it. Healing's a chorus, and every voice counts.